it's just about saying, hey, this is my job. I need to be doing this professionally. How many hours does my friend, when he goes and clocks into work, how many hours does he spend at his job? And it's not a fake it till you make it. It's just be different, be better.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 6 of the Nashville Drummers Podcast.
This will be our last episode of 2021, and man, I really can't think of a better guest to have on to end the year with. Today, we sit down with Kayleigh Moyer. Kayleigh has quickly built quite the name for herself, but for those who haven't yet had the joy of meeting her or getting to know her, just a quick background. Kayleigh graduated from Belmont University right here in Nashville. She holds a bachelor's in commercial music percussion with an emphasis in performance. Kayleigh has performed at the Grand Ole Opry multiple times with country artist Ashley Clark, and she's currently on tour with breakout country star Ian Flanagan, among others. In addition to live performance, Kayleigh works as a session player and instructor at many revered Nashville recording studios, as well as her own state-of-the-art home studio, which she built prior to the pandemic. And we talk about all of that in this interview, and we just couldn't help but feel really inspired and motivated ourselves. In fact, there were many moments during the interview where Nate and I would just kind of look at each other and think, wow, like, this is amazing, you know?
Yeah, you'll hear those moments where we kind of pause and you can tell that we're taking a minute to consider our own lives and decisions. But it was extremely motivational and inspirational for both of us, and I felt like we both came away with some actual ideas of things that we wanted to do better in our own pursuit of our craft.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kept coming back to the term curiosity. You know, I just found that throughout her journey, and I think a major reason for her success so far is that she's someone that is just very curious. She's always asking questions with the goal of improving her crafts and just becoming the best that she can be.
Yeah, she's kind of embodying the don't think too much about it, just go and do it. Do the thing. Start when you're not when you're ready, but just start now on whatever it is you want to do, which is something that I preach, and she's just doing so much better than I do. So it was jealousy isn't the right word, but it's something like jealousy where I look at it and go, yeah, I wish I had been. I wish that I were more that way. So hopefully we will be more that way going forward, and maybe you'll feel the same way.
So what number am I?
Is this 6?
I lost count. I think we've released 4. And yeah, we did. Ethan was 5. He will be 5.
Right. Okay. Yeah, you'll be 6.
He'll be
Number 6.
It's a lucky number.
Say the best for 6th.
Is it number?
It's not a competition.
I'm joking.
Yeah.
All right.
You know what they always say? They always say, save the best for 6th. Yeah, I've heard them say it. Well,
we're rolling.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. It's so good to have you here.
Thank you.
Looking at me for?
I just feel like you're Mr. Structure, and if you had a starting off point, I didn't want to do it.
Didn't necessarily have one.
Okay.
Well, I guess we can maybe start with because I have a kind of interesting story of how we first met way long ago in New York.
Yep.
And I think you have a story,
I do.
if I'm mistaken, of you meeting Kayleigh in Nashville, right?
I do. Yeah.
So where in New York are you from again?
So I went to school in Phoenix, New York.
Phoenix,
it's
New York.
north of Syracuse.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, I guess we first met we went to the Crane Youth Music, so SUNY Potsdam, and we did the Crane Youth Music summer camp, which is kind of like, yeah, it was just pretty prestigious music camp, and I think that was like 2009, I want to say.
Yeah, I think we were, sophomores and juniors?
Juniors, yeah.
The 2 years that we were there.
Yeah, and we got to study with Jim and James Petersack. Yeah,
Yep.
Those guys are legends.
It was a good introduction to kind of like what music school was going to feel like, because it was at the university and you two were taking classes and having ensemble rehearsals, and I don't know, it's just a really good place to meet other like-minded friends.
Yeah, I remember that was like I was already interested in percussion, and just music business, but that was like, I was just so inspired every year I left that camp. It made it kind of feel really real, and of course met so many friends. How many years did you do that camp? Because I think I did like 2 or 3.
I did that twice.
Just twice? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, here we are. And it's crazy how and we'll get to your journey from New York to Nashville, and because I feel like we were pretty good friends, and then I feel like I've just kind of been following you through social media and just seeing all the amazing things you've been doing. And now that we're both in Nashville, it's just awesome.
Crazy small world. Yeah, we
really
met and
is.
went in school. We weren't anywhere near each other to have met kind of organically before that, but we met at camp, and then you went off to Indianapolis, I think.
Eventually, yeah.
Eventually, is that where I remember, and then running into you at NAMS in Anaheim.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We were running into you there, and then it was just like one day you're like, hey, I'm in Nashville. Do you want to meet for coffee? By the way, I'm working for Pearl. I was like, what?
Yeah, and now you're a Pearl art. Everything's connected. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, this weird convergence. I love it.
Yeah,
so it's cool to have you here now too.
Yeah. Well, thanks for doing this podcast.
Of course.
So yeah, what's your story?
Well, so my story of meeting you is one day I was playing a show with a couple of friends, a couple of string players, Jesse Brock, Josiah Baker, and so you came in and I overheard you. I didn't know you at all, but I overheard you telling that you were going to be doing page turning for Tim.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, I'm like, all right, that's cool, right on. And I said something about that. I was like, oh, how does one get into I just took it literally.
You thought, I think I'm remembering.
Yes, I was like,
now.
I just assumed I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. How does somebody get into doing that? And you're like, oh no, I was just kidding. And Jesse Brock turned to me. He's like, you thought she was serious? He's like, do you know who this is? It's Kayleigh fucking Moyer. And I was like, okay, I'm sorry. I don't know what I did wrong.
I was really contemplating going into it and then totally giving you a bullshit story about how I'm a professional page turner. This is how I make money per page, not per hour. I should have just gone into this whole thing with you, but I'm a little shy, so that would have made the story even better.
I was going to say, you're very intimidating. So that makes sense.
Well, it's funny because at the time I was thinking, I'm like, well, shoot, I hope I didn't offend this person. I just was taking them serious.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my story of meeting you.
Well, lovely. I haven't turned a page since.
No, not even metaphorically.
No, I went to the iPad. It's a foot thing now.
It's a foot thing now?
It's a foot. It starts as a page for you.
Oh, they do that,
They
don't
do,
they?
yeah.
Oh, I need to get into that. If only I ever used charts for anything. I just don't have that discipline. Just got to memorize everything forever.
Well,
I can't. That story's coming back to me.
Yeah,
now.
so let's see. I definitely want to discuss, as I said, your journey, because you've been through a lot. And maybe we should just start with kind of what you're currently up to and maybe work kind of backwards. So I just saw, this would be a few weeks ago when this airs, but you were doing some cruise gig, right? Tell us about that.
Cool. So I was just on the Rock Boat, which is, they call it the world's greatest floating music festival. It's got a bunch of rock bands on it.
Huh. You heard of that, Nate?
I have not.
Yeah.
Kind of crazy. I got called about it about a month ago, about this group based in DC, who their producer and then a drummer out of Nashville who they work with a lot, Near Z. Mm-hmm. He's one of the studio guys. They were asking, because most of what they do is they travel as a duo and play with tracks, guitar, synth, but they wanted to kind of bump it up to the next notch for some festival gigs. They're like, we want to add drums to the mix. And they had kind of seen, I guess they asked Near and they asked their producer about, who would you add for drums in Nashville? And my name came up.
That's awesome.
And they saw my work on my Mallet station, how I was starting to play synth parts. And they're like, great, we could really use that on the show if you're cool with, bringing that along with us. So I got to rehearse with them the week before in Nashville and kind of go and do this. It was 3 shows. But some of the other bands were like Bowling for Soup and Switchfoot and Sister Hazel. And it was this really amazing festival. And there's people, they've been doing it for 21 years now. There's people on the boat that have been there all 21 years. And just the coolest music fans and the coolest musicians in the world. So that's where I was for the last week.
Oh my Lord, that's amazing.
It was everything I love about vacation and being on a boat and playing a music festival, kind of all in one. Just kind of came out of the blue.
Did you have a lot of time off, or was it pretty strict with performance?
It was it was a 5-day cruise, and I played first day took off second, played third, took off fourth, played fifth. So I kind of had a day in between. And of course, there's like a million bands playing. So I'm running from show to show. Didn't really get to go swimming or do anything crazy, but it was like, it was luxurious enough where I was able to take my time. But 3 of the 5 days I had to play.
Had you done a gig like that before?
No, not quite like that. I'd never done a cruise thing at all before. And I haven't done a music festival since before COVID. So it's kind of weird to get back into that mode again, but so welcome. So great.
And see the selling point. She said it, Dan.
What'd she say?
Mallets.
Yep.
I need to learn how to play the damn mallets.
I was going to go there next.
Everyone can play the mallets but me, Dan.
Marimba.
I'm not a serious percussionist.
We'll teach Nate marimba. Mallets.
Please.
We'll do 2 mallets, then we'll do 3, then eventually 6.
Yeah, I mean, there are some real world applications out there now for it that I was like, well, when am I ever going to play marimba again for a gig? It's not at all what I get called for. Yeah. But then now I'm talking to other pop artists. They're like, we would love to add that into the show because it looks cool. Yeah. I can cover the same synth parts or loop bass lines or whatever I want it to sound like.
Right.
Opportunities.
So I think the content I got from playing this festival really kind of helped me going forward. I would love to just keep it in my setup full time. It's on the left side of my kit, so I just turn.
Love it. That's
it's like right there.
Peart, totally.
Yeah. Yes, that's where I got it from. Is Mallet Cat.
And you're doing the Rush, the Instagram covers. And,
I'm going to do more of those.
Can't wait.
What's next then?
What's next? I am playing this weekend in Maryland with another artist I play for, Ian Flanagan. He's a country artist. He's got a single on the radio with Blake Shelton right now. They're just kind of ramping things up. I mean, this is the end of the year, so nobody's kind of doing anything crazy until February-ish, but they're just kind of getting their ducks in a row. We're filming a couple videos. We're going to be in Kansas City possibly doing some video work just to get content, for these artists to hopefully tour in the spring.
Right.
And just wrapping up the rest of my year.
That's great.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to go back to the mallet station and just your classical background, because that's what we studied at the Crane Youth Music Summer Camp. So I guess just like if we can go back to those like your middle school, high school years, how early did you start playing drums?
I started when I was 10. The summer before 5th grade, I saw the movie School of Rock, and I wanted to be like Freddie. I had the yellow goggles.
Before, I think.
But I had the yellow goggles. I'd wear on my forehead and stick it to the man, My parents got me a drum set that Christmas. Nice. So that'll be, 18 years this Christmas that I've been.
Do you remember your first drum set?
Yeah, it was a Ludwig accent and wine red. It came in 2 boxes. So the first day, my dad and I had to sit and put all of the heads on, the rims, learn to tune the drums, learn how everything works before I could even play it, which was kind of cool experience looking back. Yeah. But it was just all in pieces.
Yeah.
But it was pretty epic. My dad got it from the House of Guitars in Rochester. Pretty good music shop if you know upstate New York at all. And then started 5th grade band that year. And I don't know.
So that was more drum set. When did you kind of switch into percussion?
Well, when we were in 5th grade, it was kind of, they split the drummers up in you want to play mallets or you want to play percussion. And they kind of segregated it a little bit, which is a bummer. So there were kids that were they are the mallet kids. And they looked at me you can read, you're the snare drum kid.
Oh,
kind of a thing,
Shun the non-believer.
What, I can't do that? Well, why not? You should get
both?
really good. Yeah. So I wasn't really till high school that I got into mallet stuff because I had a really great band director, Mr. Bird, who went to Crane, actually, studied with Peter Sack, and is a great mallet player. And he's like, you really need to get on this train if you're going to want to go to college for this. He's like, I don't care if you want to be a classical percussionist, you should still have this under your belt. So he had me doing all the Yellow Under the Rain, all the 4 mallet solos, just so that I would be prepared. But drum set was always my heavy focus on everything, marching and drum set, and mallets was kind of on the back burner. I did it just because I believed him that I had to.
Right.
But it worked for college auditions, and even in college, I did classical perc ensemble. I was in the pit for the opera.
Where was college for you?
I went to Belmont University here in Nashville. That was kind of why my big push to move down here.
Yep.
But then I was like, I'm doing it just because I can. And they need somebody, and it helps with scholarship money. And but I didn't really think I would use it that much again because I don't do a ton of classical gigs. Every once in a while, I work with the Hollywood Film Music Orchestra. But even for that, it's film music, so I'm doing a lot of drum kit stuff when they need that. But until the Mallet Station came out, I never really thought that I would use any of it again. And now I'm like, wow, this could actually really help me
and like a compact,
stand out.
like on tour and gigs with a drum set, right?
Yes. And this push where like artists want more and more electronic percussion in your rig. And I had already kind of accepted the whole Roland SPDSX being like a permanent part of my setup. I'm like, but there's so much more I want to be able to do in this. And of course, growing up watching Neil Peart and Rush having his Malacat where he would just go over and trade fours with himself.
Right.
That's the coolest thing ever. What could I do with that? So anyway, Pearl came out with that, and I'm like, what do I have to do to get one of those? I want
I'll
one
become
of
an
those.
artist. That'll do it.
No, that was a big thing. They're like, would you ever be interested in Pearl? I was like, you have the Mallet Station. That's really amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the concept of skill stacking or talent stacking?
No.
So, okay.
We've talked about this.
Yeah, we
was that my episode?
It might have been.
Or multiple episodes, yeah.
So the idea is you can maybe gain extreme skill in one area, or if you just gain, not to say gaining extreme skill in one area is not going to be helpful to you. You can gain great skill in a variety of areas, and that makes you unique. So you have the ability to play the drums. You have the ability, you kind of have a modern mind for drums and recording, and obviously you've put together your own studio in a very professional way. And then on top of it, having that classical training with mallets, it's something that a lot of people don't have. You either have one or the other. So it kind of makes you unique and uniquely marketable. So that's the idea. And that's what I was thinking about the entire time you were describing that. So.
Yeah.
Thank you. I still don't think that I would consider myself a super proficient, mallet percussionist though either. I have friends where that is what they have studied for the last 18 years and they are incredible. Yeah. And that is their thing. And
I just came back, sorry to interrupt. I just came back from PASIC. You've been to PASIC, right?
I actually haven't.
You haven't? Okay.
I've always wanted to.
And that was, of course, that's like for those unfamiliar, it's a very like educationally based percussion conference. And that's where a lot of four mallet players and teachers and vibraphone players,
I just like to say that if you go to PASIC again and don't take me with you, I'm going to physically harm you.
All right. Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more, though. That's like, I guess, how have you sort of tried to market yourself differently since graduating from Belmont? Because, like Nate said, you have a very professional website. I've been to your studio, and I want to definitely talk about all of that as well. But what have you done, or what do you feel like you've needed to do as a professional musician in Nashville to kind of get all these different gigs and these different opportunities? Sure.
It's just kind of having, step one was getting a business card, I think was the first thing. I don't know if you ever read Zorro had a really great book.
No.
The Big Gig. Zorro had a book called The Big Gig. And while I was at Belmont, he taught there. And I took his class on that book. And he kind of walks through the steps of just like how to be a professional, successful, marketable musician. Step one was like, I realized I get to town, and if you have a business card, like right up front, business card, website, a good picture of your face on it, like that's already makes you look like, instead of just a guy with sticks in his back pocket, like, oh, she's kind of got her stuff together.
Yeah.
Starting with that, having the website, that website has definitely evolved over the last 2 years because I was adding virtual lessons, virtual drum tracks as soon as I got my studio up and running. When I was in college, I was spending at least 2 or 3 nights a week networking at different spots around town, doing different jams, trying to hang out at the same coffee shops or the same restaurants that I knew producers were at, because I started learning how you want to aim to meet the producers because then they have multiple artists they work with.
Right.
That's what I'm learning now.
As far as instead of going to just the artist. And it's kind of cool. You work with the producer, and then I was always aiming to get more into the studio scene anyway.
Yeah.
So that was a big thing. Going to the NAMM shows, the Nashville drum shows was pretty big, and then just trying to stay current with what's going out. What's going on between social media, what new gear is out there. Electronic percussion has become so important in the last 5 years since I graduated. So just trying to keep on top of that, running tracks, learning how to run the tracks in Ableton, learning how to make my own. It was just, and finding what skills I do have that might be a little bit, extra help getting me in places. Like sometimes I'll market to like I do background vocals when I play drums. Like any of those things, I'm trying to like read the situation and trying to put that in there as well.
Yeah, that one's huge. You get that. I get that comment a lot. Oh, I love so and so's playing. Plus he sings, so that's really makes me want to hire him. Like, yeah, that is useful.
Exactly.
Do you sing?
I do.
You do?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But I don't. That comment is not made about me because I haven't marketed myself as a singer.
Yeah.
So maybe I should start.
Sometimes it's better, yeah. Drums, percussion, background vocals, BGVs on your card with that, and trying to artists love that.
Yeah.
Producers are going to be more, and band leaders are going to be more into like, oh, you do the electronic stuff. Oh, you run the tracks. Oh, you're good with this.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Like I said, I mean, I'm not a very proficient mallet player, but with the mallet station, I'm not trying to play it like it's a traditional mallet instrument either, because it's not. It's not the way the bars. I'm used to like a marimba where the width of the bars might change as it goes from left to right, or the raised second row, and it feels different. And it's kind of like going between an electronic kit and a regular kit, where it's not meant to replace that instrument. It's just meant to open up a whole new world of possibilities that we can do with it. So I'm trying my best to start getting into that world of what can I do with this? And kind of my next thing is going into triggering light shows with it.
Ooh.
Using MIDI.
Yeah.
Oh,
so I'm trying to look into like, if I could do that, I might be the first drummer.
Unstoppable.
Maybe I'm the first drummer out there doing that. And I might not be the best mallet player, but I can get around it well enough to make somebody's show be super cool and unique and trigger their synth parts or whatever percussion parts they've gone into it, or inspire something when I'm writing with them.
This is all very.
This is inspiring.
Are you familiar with Seth Godin at all?
That sounds really familiar.
Yeah, he wrote This Is Marketing.
Yeah, he's written a crap load of books. He is a marketing genius. You should check out his stuff.
Yeah.
He has a book called The Purple Cow, and the idea behind The Purple Cow is, say you're out in let's say you're in Europe, and you're driving past endless, beautiful fields, lush green pastures, and you're just blown away by all the stuff you're seeing. But within an hour of being out there and seeing all that, you become accustomed to that thing. And the only thing that would bring your attention right back to the moment would be if you saw something very different, not necessarily better, but different. Mm-hmm. If you saw a purple cow, you wouldn't just go, wow, you would pull the car over. And I need to look at this because this is not what I'm used to in life. What you're describing is being a purple cow. Like sometimes you could be, you said, well, I'm not necessarily a super proficient mallet player. Which
I think you are, but that's just you being humble.
Right.
Thank you.
More than most. Yeah.
So it doesn't necessarily matter if you're the brownest cow, but what you're creating is you're a purple cow. And that's even better because it's like, oh, I've never seen that before. I want that.
I have never heard a compliment in which I've been compared to a cow where it's been positive.
We got the lights that are purple.
You're so welcome. I'm glad I could call you a cow in the best possible way.
Just in the future, that's the only way you can call a girl a cow and get away with it.
Oh yeah, well this show's already going to get canceled.
Yes.
With your words.
Yeah. I tend not to call people cows except in a positive way.
When you do, you call them purple cows.
But I get the analogy. That makes a lot of sense.
Right. Yeah.
But you also mentioned how it's like you were an hour into the drive and you're already bored.
Right.
And you have to come up with the purple cow. So doesn't that mean that like in a year, I'm going to have to do something like that again to kind of keep
what will happen is if people see you doing it, they'll copy that. So, but you're still the first person who did it. So you're a thought leader in that way. That makes you a winner.
I'm just following Neil Peart's lead here, and so much of what I'm doing, so much of what he's done influences me.
That's fair. Okay.
So that definitely sparked the desire to go down this path. But I'm going to be picking your brain a lot more because you had the mallet station under your hands sooner than I did.
Yes.
So I'm just starting to dive into it too. But
yeah. So who are your other influences besides Neil?
Ooh, that's a good question. So Chester Thompson is one of my biggest influences and a humongous reason why I moved to Nashville. He used to teach out of Forks Drum Closet here in town. So when I was about 12, 13, my parents would take me down here for like summer vacation. Yeah. And I get to take a couple lessons with him every summer. So it just kind of got to the point where when I'm like 16, 17, he's finally like, well, where are you going to go to college? Have you thought about that yet? I'm like, I really haven't. He's like, well, do you want to hop in the car? Belmont's right down the road. I'll show you. I teach there full time. And if you move here, you can study with me full time. And it just kind of he turned into a huge mentor. And
Wow.
I love his playing and how much it changed over the years and evolved and developed and got better. And the jazz group that he's got now, just his whole career, I've just tried to I want to model my career after what he's done.
He's incredible.
Between all the educational, between, the work he did with Genesis and Phil Collins and Weather Report and Frank's. It's just such a cool... He's been a major influence. I'd say recently I've been diving into a lot of Steve Jordan and just kind of setting up kick snare hat.
Yeah.
And really focusing my time into the groove and where am I hitting on the snare drum and really what's giving me that wow factor. Where does that pocket? And it has so much to do with placement. He's been a big one. Art Blakey was pretty massive when I was in middle school, high school.
Yeah.
I had a phase where I set up my kit just like him and tried to play exactly like him on top of the drums.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a start.
Yeah.
Those are some of my
That's a good
That's
names.
a great start.
some of my favorite drummers.
That's really wide ranging too, which I like. Yeah, that's awesome.
I listen to a lot of different stuff.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's honestly, I find that obviously the best players are always people who are like, well, my style influences are from 5 or 6 different places. Oh, my favorite, I will not name names, but there's a guy named...
We did this last time. Yeah, we'll edit it out.
Kenny Grahowski. I'm not going to name the other names. There were two. I saw this guy play with Felix Pistorius at Bass Bash, and there were some other A-list drummers who played before him, and he made them look like children. And I was like, I've never heard of this guy. Who is this guy? Just some tall, lanky, scraggly, skinny white guy up there just destroying people. I'm like, oh, that was cool. Those guys before him, who I know by name, have known for years, just got annihilated. They had I was like, that's cool. You have 2 or 3 ideas. This guy has 50,000. And then I did a little research. I'm like, oh, he's got a metal band, a death metal band. He's got a freeform jazz group. He's in a salsa group. Got it. His influences are massive.
That makes sense.
Having multiple sources like you do is going to make you a super well-rounded player. That's awesome.
And then I've been really diving into, since I'm so interested in studio work in Nashville, just who are these main core group of guys that are recording all of the major hits coming out of Nashville. So people like Near Z is huge, Chad Cromwell, and just all of these guys that are doing all these major sessions. And I'm starting to get to the point where I can hear a record and usually be able to tell which one it is. And learning those nuances and just trying to figure out why they make the decisions they do, when to lay back, when to actually come up with this really phenomenal fill, 2 beats versus 8 beats of a fill. I don't know.
Question, this is just because I don't know. Do you know if Shannon Forrest is still active in that scene, or is he kind of done with that?
I don't know.
I thought he was.
Yeah. Because talking to him one time, it kind of sounded like he was maybe done with it, but I mean, the guy's been on 3,000 plus records, so I didn't know. Maybe you knew. Yeah, just curious.
Never talked to him, actually.
Yeah.
I'd love to meet him someday.
He's a cool dude. A little intense. He's really intense, actually.
Aren't we all?
Yeah.
Especially you.
Yes.
That page turner. Yeah. So why don't we kind of switch to that? So for those that don't know you, and we kind of alluded to this earlier, but you do have your own very professional home studio that you've literally just built in your garage, right? In your basement?
It was an attachment built off the house that was a woodworking shop before I moved in.
Yeah. So when did you get interested in recording? Was that before you moved to, or before you went to Belmont, or?
No, I mean, I guess while I was in Belmont, I made a lot of audio friends in the audio, both at MTSU and at Belmont, and had a lot of, every chance I had, I was trying to record on somebody's project just to get the experience of recording drums. And between that and then my first few years out of college when I'm recording drums and I'm so excited and I put the drums down and I put all this time into getting the new heads, tuning them up perfectly, getting the great gear, throwing down something I feel is really fantastic, walking away and then listening to it later and not being thrilled all the time.
Right.
I feel like I just put all this into it and you kind of didn't do it justice on the mixing end. And of course there's a few guys that are, phenomenal, amazing, and I go to them every time professionally, but I'm just like, I wish I knew what the difference was between these guys and the guys that I'm not as crazy about. I mix my drums. Like, is it my fault? Did I do something wrong? I wish I could know enough about the recording and the mixing process to be more in control of my sound from start to the finished product.
Right.
Yep.
So I took a couple classes while I was in Belmont and just started picking my friends' brains all the time. I mean, the main goal was to not be a professional, mix engineer.
Right.
But it was to just
know enough to get really good quality.
And in the back of my head, I'm wondering if that would also make me go into a studio and play the drums differently too, knowing what they know.
Right.
And that changed a little bit. Like, I hit my cymbals a lot softer. I hit my snare and kick a lot harder.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Just kind of like the self-mixing things, learning what they like and they hate about us secretly. And like our snare drum sounds so completely different in the room than it does listening back over a mic too. So I'm like trying to figure out, is it a tuning thing? Is it a miking thing? What is different? So that was like my big questions. Like, that's been my biggest thing that's drumming related, but also not drumming related. That's been my fascination.
It's a whole other art form. It really is.
Yeah, if I lived another life and couldn't play drums, that's probably what I would want to get into.
Yeah, behind the board.
But I was, right out of college, I was busy touring a lot and didn't really have enough time to sit home and kind of I collected things, but I didn't have enough time to really learn the DAWs really well. I took Pro Tools classes in college, and it kind of was the bane of my existence.
Yeah.
A friend got me into Logic. I started to like that a whole lot better.
Yeah.
Ableton was a little dicey. I'm starting to get into Studio One now, but I had the space in my house, and it had the 10-foot tall ceilings because I know I need at least the high ceilings for the drums. There's potential in this space. I should turn it into a studio. And then finally, the year before COVID, I'm like, this is the year my roommate was moving out. I'm like, this is the year we do it. So I started in February. I think I had the guys from RLX that make the studio foam stuff come into my house, and we walked through and we made a lot of decisions, like what's going to be the best control room, what's going to be the best tracking room, and what wall should the drums be against, and that whole thing. And they helped me design it. They had acousticians figure it all out, and we started building it from there. Presonus came in and like, what are we trying to do? And I said, I'm usually home by myself. How can I record my drums without having the board sitting right next to my kit? Can I have a different mixing environment than a recording environment, which requires 2 rooms, right?
Right.
How do I make that work? And they came out with their Studio Live ecosystem, they call it, where it's all controlled by your iPad. So I can control the board and change the gain levels from a different room, start and stop. I mean, Pro Tools and Logic and Studio One have their own apps to be able to control it too, so I can go between 2 rooms and be able to make it work by myself too. But I finished that before Summer NAMM 2019.
Wow. And so you were doing all of this, and little did we all know what was about to happen.
I had no idea. Well, I finished it for Summer NAMM. I threw a big party, had everybody over to check it out, and then didn't really use it again the next few months because I went on tour again. And I was just like, well, when I get back this winter, I really want to get into it. And then COVID. And I was like, well, no better time.
Yeah.
No
what
better time.
A freaking stroke of luck that is.
I don't know if it was luck, if it was this voice in the back of my head saying, this is your next chapter.
Yes. It's both.
It's kind of...
it's luck meets opportunity, right? And
luck, opportunity, kind of this divine... I don't know. It was kind of odd.
Yeah.
But having that really saved my butt.
Yeah. Holy
it really,
moly.
really, really did.
Yeah, well, let's at least call it fortuitous. That's incredible.
There was a lot. I think there's more to it. It wasn't luck. It wasn't. It was just like, I don't know. It was like, it just felt like this is the time for it, and
some sort of divine voice, like, hey, it's time. This next season's going to be
almost
perfect
like God
for this.
saying, like, this is your next chapter.
Yeah.
I think you're going to want this. So it was a lot of work. It took I already had it set up as a rehearsal space.
Yeah.
But it took about 2.5 months to really kick it into gear of where it is now. Because we had to run cables under the house. My dad helped me run snakes under the house and install everything. And I've been dialing it in over the last year. My last piece is I've been trying out different room mics. And that'll finally, I think, between that, adding a few more compressors, we'll get it to where I really want it to be.
Wow. Man, I'm going to listen back to this podcast, take notes, and label them how to be a professional.
Yeah, right. Well, it's interesting. As I'm hearing you just tell all these different stories, I keep coming back to just curiosity. Right, and like you're just so motivated, like why don't my mixes sound like this, or how can I become more of that purple cow and become different and more marketable and use my mallet chops? Like, it's just really cool hearing how you've been able to use all these different skills to where you are now?
Well, it certainly opened up so many doors, and I'm really thankful that I had it for COVID. That changed everything.
Was that your
for me.
first ever like home studio?
My dad and I built a little home studio when I was in high school with just a small 8-channel PreSonus interface and had my drum set up, but I had no idea what I was doing. Yeah. Absolutely no idea. But we took what we learned from that and built this studio, and it was kind of hard learning from my friends and learning from the materials on the internet.
Yeah.
Because everything is like out there meant for audio majors to learn, and I went to school for drumming and percussion performance. Like I didn't go to school with all this audio nerd brain stuff in my head already. So trying to like learn from what's out there was hard. So now going back, I think it would be really easy for me to help like work with other drummers and other musicians in a simpler language.
Yeah.
But kind of what I've been figuring out over the last 2 years.
You think you could translate that well for more beginners?
And just kind of, I could never replace a great formal education, but I could like tell you why, you might want a snare under a mic under your snare drum, or, how far are you going to put that mic through your kick drum?
Yeah.
Right.
It's just like, or just different overhead configurations depending on what your cymbal patterns are. I feel like I could at least start there with people.
Having that translator is really useful. My dad he's a serial entrepreneur, but in one of his businesses, he started off as the IT guy, and then he was basically administrator of the whole place, and his role became communication between the IT department and marketing, because they speak entirely different languages. Marketers want such and such. The IT people don't even know what that means. And the marketers surely don't know what the IT department is talking about when they're saying why they can't do whatever. So having a person that can speak both languages fluently is like, so lovely.
I think
Super
that'll be
valuable.
my next.
Yeah.
My next. I think I want to do a series of short videos kind of on that.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
You should.
Which I'm seeing so many people on, like, for example, the Facebook page that deals with the Mallet Station users. A lot of the same questions keep popping up.
Right.
So it's like starting with that, and like it'd be so easy to make little 30-second videos.
Yeah.
So it just kind of help.
Instead of digging through
troubleshooting.
comments and forums, it's just
Yeah,
like,
and
here
30-minute videos when it's only
Yeah.
20 seconds I really need to hear out of the whole thing.
Right.
I don't know, I feel like that's kind of where I'm being called to next when I have a little bit more time to myself.
Your next curious project.
My
I
next
can't wait for that.
curious project.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
When I'm doing this too, I'm just like, I don't feel like I have the authority or experience yet to be able to tell somebody else what they should be doing, but I have just enough to be like, this is what I've learned, and I hope it helps
You've
you, because
learned
it
so
definitely
much
helps me.
just by doing,
Yes.
like that's almost what you have to do.
Experimenting. Drums are all about experimenting, so that's exactly what I'm doing.
Even more so, I'd say, with audio, right?
Yes.
Engineering and it's constant. I mean, that's what I'm kind of doing in this room, and there's a lot of drummers, obviously, in Nashville trying to do the same thing. What advice would you give someone that's, whether they just moved here or they've been here for 5 years, that is trying to start their own drum studio? Like, where do you kind of begin?
Their own drum studio in like their house?
Yeah,
Or
their
just
house,
anywhere?
more of a project studio.
Yeah.
Like in terms of, you should maybe just get this, semi-professional mic kit, or focus on the room first, or...
Well, the room definitely is a big part of it. And what I didn't realize at first was it starts with the floor. And my dad built me a drum riser, so I'm a little bit off the ground, because a lot of what we're doing is kind of escaping down into the floor, or if we're on a wood floor, that's reverberating too, and that's making these nasty extra overtones that we don't even realize are there. And we're like, why is it so muddy? That's why.
Yeah.
So through RLX, I have a hover deck, which are these 2x2 foot foam elevated isolation pieces. And then I have their version of a drum rug called the hover mat on top of that. So that's a more portable version. So that helps by, keeping some of the bass frequencies from leaking through the floor. It helps just, I don't know. Starting with the floor is really good, especially if you have neighbors complaining too. A lot of bass frequencies travel that way too. So you'll get less complaints. But I figured, like, your whole room vibrating is because of your floor.
Right.
With my friends with all wooden houses here, especially in East Nashville, that's kind of a big thing. And then putting up something directly behind you if you're up against a wall, because a lot of the cymbals are just coming straight out of the envelope, hitting your wall, and then shooting right back into the mics again. Right. If you're trying to do vocals, if you're trying to do anything, it just goes back and straight into it. So something hanging behind you that's a good place to start. And then I think that your overhead mics are the most important mics to put money into.
Yep. That's great advice.
A good interface that's got good preamps in it. And really just, even if you're using GarageBand, just start diving into it.
Yeah. Just do the thing.
Just do the thing. Like, what's compression? And you just start twisting these knobs, trying to figure out what does this do, until you start finding the sounds that you like. And you're like, oh, wow, that makes such a difference.
There's basic principles, of course, of what.
Yes.
But like, if I turn this knob this way, it does this, and it affects the sound that way.
Exactly. Yeah. But you start hearing enough so that when you take it into somebody else's studio, you're doing more of a professional session, you could really listen to it. You know what, man? The way I've got this drum tuned, I really think you need to scoop out such and such a frequency. Or the way I've got this set up, like I hear this gate that you've got set up and I'm being really dynamic on my kick drum right now. Can you lift that gate up because you're not catching some of the really distinct notes I'm doing? Mm-hmm. It just changes the way you approach your job. Learning somebody else's a little bit.
Of course. So. Yeah, well, I mean, this kind of was floating in my head earlier. When I started learning a little bit of bass, I suddenly started thinking, well, what would I want as a bass player from my drummer?
Exactly.
Like, well, I certainly wouldn't want a lot of the things that I was doing before. I'm not going to do those things anymore.
Exactly.
I really want to build that trust between me.
I didn't know you played bass.
There's a lot of things you don't know about me yet. I'm going to tell you later. It'll be a process of knowing me for an eternity.
Off the mic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'll tell you on the mic.
That's cool.
But it'll be like next year.
Yeah.
I'll just like hit you with, by the way, I'm trained
truth
in
bombs.
I don't know, something.
By the way, ba-ba-boo, ba-ba-doo.
Yeah.
I'm a level 8 black belt or whatever. Which I would,
I mean.
Wouldn't be a surprise.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you already know that, actually.
Level 8?
Well, no.
No, that's not a thing.
You know that you already know I train. So that's not
anyway.
a surprise. I'm trying to think of something that would actually surprise you, and you're not letting me get there.
You finished Step Brothers. That would surprise me.
Yeah, that would. I'm sorry.
Wow. Okay. So you've so you built the studio.
I just want to say this is the least deraily I've been because you've been giving so much great information. Usually I'm just like, I want to derail everything that everyone's saying, but you're just like giving such fascinating information.
Purple cow,
like,
yellow cow.
I just want to shut up and listen.
No, that's good. We only got one color cow.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I might be talking too much.
No,
I just have a million things on my brain.
No, this is great. I think there's so much that we want to talk about, and I think for me, it's already been really inspirational. And already, like, I'm always trying to think of the listener when we're having these conversations and like what would they want to know. So definitely appreciate all the insights so far. So, okay, you built the studio. It's now the pandemic hits, the world shuts down. Mm-hmm. Then what happens?
Well, I got into doing remote drum tracks and started teaching again because I could virtually. Mm-hmm. I hadn't been teaching drum lessons in a very long time just because I didn't have a space to teach out of that wasn't my house. I didn't want strangers coming over, obviously.
Right.
So I kind of got back into it again, but with having like more specialty teaching in mind, because a lot of my other drummer friends were trying to build their own studios or trying to record from home. Mm. So I was kind of doing lessons, just helping them virtually set up. We would talk about mixing, and I would have students even in Florida where I was talking her through setting up her bedroom as a studio and recording, and then we'd spend the last half, like, she would send me these drums that she had recorded and mixed, and we'd break it down and talk about this is what you could do differently. That's a tuning thing, or this is a miking thing, or this is a let's add some compression, or let's EQ this kind of a thing. And then getting kids ready for college auditions because those went virtual. So helping a couple students get their college audition videos really on point, and then the remote drum tracks, which I was just saying for both. I did some orchestral, crazy sound effect, sound design kind of things, recording at home, sending them to clients, and then just straight up drum set stuff where I have a little shtick on my website that kind of lists the gear I've got, a couple examples of what I do, and people will just find me on there, send me their track without drums, and then I give them 3 full takes back, and I can either edit it for them or I can send it to them raw and they can edit together and do what they like with it. And just started doing that and would get 1 or 2 of those a week. Yeah. Wow. And that was enough to keep it going. But also, like, it was so rewarding and I felt like I'm really growing through this time that I was afraid that I was going to be stuck and lose everything.
Yeah, and you're finally using the space that you just worked so hard to build.
Yeah,
so that must have been pretty fulfilling.
And there were things that weren't working at first, and parts of the room I still needed to dial in. and it got better and better. Started ordering GoPros and sticking those up in places. Started ordering lights and figuring out how to use Final Cut and edit a video.
Oh gosh.
And then working on friends' projects, writing with them. It was kind of that. So
You think what I'm thinking? I'm just like, it's just inspiring. Like,
Yeah.
you want to do something, you learn it, and then you get better at it, and then you refine it, and like I'm seeing a pattern here.
Well,
with everything.
it's not as easy as it sounds. I mean,
Sure,
it's pretty
for sure.
frustrating.
It's a
It's
grind.
hours and hours, and I started a little bet with myself because I was recording a lot of cover videos for a while, and I was doing this thing where I was like, I'm trying to pick a song, record it, and film it, edit it, and post it within 45 minutes.
I remember seeing that. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Just to like make myself feel better, because otherwise we're going to tinker on something for 6 hours and it's never going to be good enough and you're never going to post it. So
Right,
you have to like, damn the torpedoes.
Yes.
The Gary Vee mindset: just put out content, just try it and refine it from doing it. Not
Oh my gosh, it
obsess
makes
over
you such a better, just thinking under pressure, just getting quicker with it. But it was growing pains. It was hard.
Yeah,
And it still is. I'm still learning, but
Wow.
it's amazing.
Yeah, no, I was thinking that same exact thing you were thinking. I'm like, well, you're kind of embodying something that I believe in, but you're showing me just how weak I am in my belief, which is like, yeah, I'm like, if you want to do something, don't wait, just do the thing, and you're just doing the damn thing over and over and over in your life. You are absolutely killing it. I'm sure we're feeling the same exact thing. I'm
thank you.
Yeah, no. It's
God,
Thank you.
I've got so much work I have to do.
Yeah, it's just
myself.
about saying, hey, this is my job.
Yeah.
I need to be doing this professionally. How many hours does my friend, when he goes and clocks into work, how many hours does he spend at his job?
Right, he's there 8 hours.
Aren't I supposed to be doing the same thing? It's
Right.
hard when you work for yourself. I get that. And that's kind of the beauty of doing this now that the world's opening up again. If I've got a heavy week, I don't have to have as many lessons or any. I can take sessions when I have the time again.
Yeah.
But you have to like start making yourself, like when I don't have a session, like, oh, I should really record something just to put it on my highlight reel, just to try to get more fans, because unfortunately in this world, the more people you got watching you, the better you look.
Right. It's just a pragmatic decision.
Yeah. But it's just like I had to really be like, okay, I'm 28 now. I really need to put however many hours a day and treat it like a job. And then by like 8, 9 p.m., I try to shut it off in most circumstances, but just like
Good for you.
treat it like it's your job.
Yeah.
And but that learning a new DAW, learning how to mic your kit, that all counts in the hours each day.
Oh, for sure.
It's hard for me to figure out what time let me rephrase that. It's hard for me emotionally to attach myself or spend the time doing other things besides practice. When I think of like my own goals, I go, well, there's so many things I want to do, but I also know that I want to be as badass as I can. So for a while I was doing what you're saying, but I was just applying that to my own practice. I'm like, I should just be practicing 8 hours a day. Because I just want to be freaking good. Mm-hmm. And that was cool, but it doesn't make me, I guess it does make me more marketable because I can play, but
But nobody knows you can.
Right. And I can't even if they know, I can't express it to them with a video that kicks ass with great sound. I'm like, I'm the imaginary guy that my dad described to me. He's like, who do you think is the best drummer on the planet? And I was a kid, and I'm like, oh, probably like Marco Miniman or something. He's like, cool. Well, there's probably a guy out there that's way better than him that you've never heard of because he just plays in his garage.
Oh.
He's like, you got to do more than just practice. I'm like, oh man, I don't want to believe in that. I just want to get really good. But you're proof positive. Not that you're not a great player, because you are a great player. But you're. Yeah, I'm feeling. What's the word? Sad.
No.
Why did you make him sad?
I'm
not
kidding.
here to make you
sad.
sad.
I'm feeling convicted is really the word. I'm like, oh yeah, there's a lot of work that I need to do, that I know I need to do, but you're just putting it right in front of me. Like, hey, look at that. I did the work and I'm awesome.
Yeah, you're living proof. Because I think a lot of people say a lot of the advice that you've lived out. You know what I mean? Like, oh, just go for it, but then or just work really hard. Like very cliche advice, but you are living proof. Like you've done all that, and you've kind of learned by doing.
Thank you. I've always hated the advice, like, fake it till you make it. Mm-hmm. And I've heard that a million times since I've moved here. And it's not a fake it till you make it. It's just be different. be better. And if I can stand out through an Instagram video over somebody who just puts their iPhone up in their drum room and records it, like, I'm gonna get the gig because my mix sounds better, right? No, it's not meant to be. It's not meant to be a diss. It's just like that's the one thing that makes you look like you've got your stuff together a little bit, a little bit more. And that was just my aim. So I mean, I need to kick my butt again now that December is usually one of the slower months of the year for me. I need to go back. Somebody today's like, "Can you start posting cover videos again?" I'm just like, shoot. Yes, I should. I should. It's a constant thing. It's not that just like I've been working so hard and I get to a level, I'm like, I can't be happy with that. Every week I feel like I have to prove myself and start over again, or else it's like, what else?
The upkeep is infinite.
What else? I had a really great friend who worked at Mapex, Joe Hibbs, and he passed, but he was an amazing, inspiring individual when I was in college and just graduating college. And I would meet up with him to just tell him everything I was doing, and he was always like, what else? And I'd be like, oh, I just did this thing with Keith Urban. He's like, great, what else?
What else?
And it just like, it was like, okay, well, what's next? And I was like, I have his voice in the back of my head every week.
So you really have to get that never settle mindset. And
kind
of. It sounds like you don't get caught up. I feel like anyone else on your level, at your age, would be really just like celebrating all these wins and just kind of settling and like starting to kind of slow down. But you're just like, you just keep going up and up.
I'm getting more energy. I feel like COVID started to like make me feel lethargic a little bit, but now that the world is slowly opening up again and I'm seeing the potential that is 2022, this next year, I'm like, I just got to be like one of those people ready out of the gate to just catch these artists' attention early.
Yeah.
So
it's a great mindset. How do you stay organized? You have all these different projects, and like any advice that you would give on, and like how to. You mentioned how you just like try to turn off at the end of the night. Like, what's your approach for kind of balancing drumming and working, and just with like, I don't know, taking a walk or listening to podcasts or you know.
Well, fishing is definitely my saving grace. It's whenever I feel. I mean, I can get overwhelmed very easily. I get stressed out way more than I feel like than the average person. But sometimes it's like, you know what? Take a step back, get my truck, find some water, go fish. And that really settles my mind because it's just enough active. It's like I have to think like, I think the fish are going to be over here today. What kind of lure do I want to use? And it's just this good. It gets you outdoors. Being outdoors is so important as musicians because we never are outdoors for fun and to play music unless it's at a festival. So like that, the sunlight, breathing fresh air. Nashville's got great places to get out. Sometimes I'll do yoga, but man, it's the fishing that helps me.
Wow.
And that can be done in the middle of the day, I think. Working consistently instead of like 8 hours in one day.
Yeah.
Even if you're doing 3 hours a day consistently at the same time, your brain gets into this routine of working. I mean, and then we're musicians. When we're working with other musicians, they're usually night owls.
Yeah.
So I can't always give that rule of like, okay, 8 o'clock, let's go to Netflix land or whatever. It changes, but fishing is my big. You have to have something that gets you outside that you can kind of help reset, find your peace again. Yeah. And then that also has the, that's a great way to, some people do this in business with golfing. They'll like try to like take their clients out golfing or work buddies out golfing to impress them to talk more. I think fishing's like my musician thing. I'll just invite musician friends like, let's go fishing. Let's talk about music and life.
Oh my gosh.
And I think that's kind of like my golf.
Yeah.
You know?
I didn't know that about you.
That's
really cool.
I was born in Alaska.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that either.
So I grew up fishing. I love fishing.
Where are your spots in Nashville?
Where are my spots in Nashville? So Marrowbone Lake. Marrowbone Lake is my new spot. You have to have a fishing license, but you can rent a boat, like just a rowboat for the whole day for $10 and sit on a lake and fish. It's the best spot, I think. Marrowbone Lake.
Wow.
Yes. That's the jam.
Yeah. I'll check that out.
That's the jam.
Sponsored
by Tennessee Fishing Agency.
Yes.
I've never gone fishing.
Neither have I.
We should go fishing.
I was never brought up.
That would be awesome.
Wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah.
You got to get your license, but it's like $20 for the year,
Yeah,
and it's so worth it and so much fun. So that's like my detox.
I love that. Yeah, I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but because we've talked about the importance of vitamin D and getting out, getting sunlight. So every day, because I work at Pearl and I'm into just a desk the whole day. But every day at noon, we have a lunch break, and I will drive. There's a vacant parking lot next to the office, and I mean it's getting kind of cold now, but I'll just park and I'll sit on top of my car and I'll stretch. I'll listen to a podcast or just silence. And I'll look right into the sun. And it looks like maybe I'm crazy, but like no, it feels great, and like I feel refreshed to go back to work. And but every single day, it's really important.
He was feeling crummy for about a month, and I was like, just go outside and take your shirt off and walk around for an hour every day.
Take that to heart.
Yeah.
I don't think I can do that.
No, probably.
You can.
I was like, you'll be fine. The sun will heal you up. He's like, I'm like, you wearing that? Like as much covered as possible. Yeah. Like get rid of it. Just go out there. Get out there.
That's great advice.
Yeah. My friend Will, who is one of my most favorite humans, he's kind of like you, non-musician.
Your favorite human?
Well, I don't. Well,
I thought I was your favorite.
I thought I'm hurt. No, he's like you in that he's just constantly got a new project. Like every time I go over, he'll be like, "Oh, so I just learned how to pickle things. Well, now I'm doing that. Oh, now I'm brewing beer. Now I'm roasting my own coffee." It's always like one of those. Mm-hmm. He's one of those people. And whenever we'd go out with him during the summer to his parents' lake house, and he would fish, and I'm always like, I should learn how to fish. He just seems like he's so happy, and he's just getting so much done in life.
You guys gotta come with me.
Yeah,
this would be fun.
This would be super cool.
I've never been, neither of you, right?
No,
so
never have.
Could be interesting.
I mean, unless you count like me holding, him showing me how to like cast for like 30 seconds. That's not.
I'm gonna probably end up in the water. It's fine.
That's fine. Swimming is great. Swim. Swimming I do a lot. Fishing. Yeah, that's new. Okay, I'm in.
Cool.
Fantastic.
So you have a marching background as well, right?
Not as extensive as a lot of my friends.
Yeah.
But just about enough to get by.
But see, okay, I'm noticing that as a trend too. Like you're learning all these skills enough to be very professional. I remember seeing you, like you did this Home Depot, ESPN, College Game Day. Tell us about that.
Sure. So that was, I'm friends with Keo, who's the drummer for Big and Rich, also Pearl artist. They were doing the College Game Day intro for ESPNU, because Big and Rich has done it for a couple different seasons now, and they wanted to have, since college marching bands are a big thing, they're like, we would love to have somebody that can play a marching snare for the video that's leading Big and Rich off the bus and up into the stage.
Right.
So Keo was like, pretty sure Kayleigh has enough of a marching background, let's call her in. So I did that part of the video shoot, and they ended up loving me so much, thankfully, that they wrote me into the rest of the day, and I got to play on that. And that's been airing for, I think, 3 years now. The same video is airing on every Saturday morning during college football season. You'll see me with a marching snare drum. It's a Pearl snare drum, but they put tape over it.
I saw that. Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
Just because I don't really regularly advertise that, but enough of my friends, knew that I could do that.
Yeah.
And just that kind of worked out. But that was through a friend. Keo was really sweet and recommended me for that. But I didn't get into like super heavy into the drum corps stuff. I never did like a summer, DCI or anything.
Yeah.
I really loved, middle school, high school marching band, field band, indoor drum line. When that was in high school, that was bigger than sports. That was like that was our thing, and I loved it. But then I started seeing changes to my technique that I didn't love. Like I was going to my jazz drum set lessons, and I was doing traditional grip for that too, and I was having a lot of problems struggling to get out of the very rigid format that I was just going in from playing in the drum line that night to jazz and relaxing, and I was kind of seeing these long-term side effects I didn't love in my playing, and I didn't like the way it was changing it. I mean, I loved chops wise and rudiments and sight reading. I mean, that was huge developing with me, but it was, I just kind of saw it being detrimental to me personally for my technique.
Yeah.
So I kind of, I wanted to go to college that had a marching band, but Belmont didn't, but Belmont had Nashville.
I had enough, yeah.
Belmont had the city,
and
which is
Thompson.
why I was here, and Chester Thompson. So the snare drum kind of drifted away from me slowly.
And did you study with Norton as well, Christopher Norton?
He was my classical percussionist. So usually the undergrads and people who are drum set majors don't really get to study with him. They study with other grad students or with Todd Kemp. But thankfully, Dr. Norton took me on because my freshman year, actually there were no other classical majors my freshman year. And everywhere I auditioned for both classical and drum set just to kind of prove that I could.
Yeah.
And that helped with scholarships too. And then I knew I can still keep my chops up, play in the symphony, play in the pit for stuff and just kind of get by. But Dr. Norton was in education. He was amazing of a teacher, and everything he taught me applied way outside the percussion realm. It went into drum set and everything else I did too. Every lesson with him was like a mock audition. So I'd walk in and I'd have my marimba piece, my timpani piece, and my snare piece prepared. I'd walk in, put the music on the stands for each, and play each solo down.
Wow.
One next to the next, and then like the next 20 minutes was talking about he had graded me and what I did great, or what I needed to work on, and what I had to learn for next week. And
I
it
love
was
that.
learning like, oh my gosh, practicing auditions is something we never get to do. And he's so about that, and it was like
that was like a big thing
amazing
that we did at the Crane, right, at Potsdam. Because that was, probably you as well. I have friends that have gone on to do, strict percussion performance at, Potsdam or Juilliard or all these incredible schools. What was your least favorite percussion instrument? Like out of like snare drum, timpani, let's say marimba.
Oh, it was definitely marimba. I
That's
hate
your
to
least
say
favorite?
it. Yeah.
Timpani
was my most favorite. I love
I would
timpani.
never
I was
guess
like
that.
all-state timpani. I was
All-state
big into timpani.
Remember, you know all about Allstate now, NISMA.
NISMA, yeah. I was all into timpani.
We're not bringing that up again. That's
An orchestral snare. What happened with
Okay, now we have to.
timpani?
had a bad experience.
Not timpani. So I think was that our first episode?
That was our no.
So the
no,
first
that
two
was second.
episodes-
That was second episode because I was interviewing you.
We interviewed each other. This whole podcast is still very new, so we were just kind of getting the hang of it.
Bringing up my shame.
And so I was talking about my background, and I mentioned NISMA, which I never really explained to somebody because it's just like New York and.
My
But
stomach
it was
hurts just thinking about NISMA right now. PTSD.
Yeah.
I thought it was okay.
To be fair, I didn't really explain the acronym, and so he
You
he
said
was waiting for
you're
this
you're
definition.
well, I went to this thing, blah 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 blah, and I'm waiting for him to explain. Like I'm waiting for at the end of where I went. There's this thing that we did called NISMA, and I was like, so what is that? And he's like, I just explained it. Like, oh, an acronym. That would have been nice to know. Anyway, but I just sounded like a complete moron.
No.
Well,
you do anyway, so I was just.
Yeah. You were just helping me along. That's fine.
It's funny.
I see where.
So I wouldn't have guessed, because even with your current love for mallets and mallet station,
It's changed.
but I mean, it is obviously very different. Playing a 4 mallet or Yellow After the Rain, 3 mallet, whatever, and like doing that very like strictly versus using mallets with a drum set setup. I mean, it's very different kind of focus.
Mallets didn't really apply to drum set, which was my love. Timpani greatly applied.
Right.
Between, drawing sound out of the head instead of driving straight down into it. Everything about the mechanics of playing the timpani and tuning it, it's like, that applies to drum set. All the chops from orchestral snare drum and like the sensitivity, that applies to drum set. Marimba, I'm like, I just don't see myself using this. And it was kind of the thing I least wanted to practice and I least wanted to do. And I was the worst at it. I was usually the worst at it. Compared to everybody around me, I was always the worst. And that makes you like it even less.
But it's cool that so you have that awareness though, like you knew like this isn't going to further benefit in my career, so
just
I'm not going
to And but now the mallet station really kind of changed it all for me, just because it's completely, it's a different instrument in my mind. It's really not the same.
Right. Yeah. But still funny that you kind of came full circle on it in a way.
Yeah.
I can just hear Mr. John Bird just being like, I told you. I told you needed to practice that more. I knew you were going to do this. Yeah. My high school band director, he's like, you need to learn mallets. But there's the people that 5th grade they designated as mallet person.
Right.
That's not me.
It was always like,
I'm snare drum person.
It just happened naturally.
They're at the Star Wars table. I'm at the Lord of the Rings table. We're not supposed to mix.
Right. Yeah. And the one kid that plays triangle.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Oh. Hey, I love a good triangle player. You ever seen someone like actually rip on a triangle?
Oh, yeah. I just came from PASIC. It was intense. There's this new
I've got my 50 mallets in my bag for triangle.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe
Yeah,
I've got those people.
Yeah, the Alan Abels of the world. Yeah.
Yes.
I do. I love to see
That's
someone shred the
amazing.
triangle. I'm not gonna lie.
You should bring that person on next.
Is there a local triangle shredder that I need to know about? Because I'm bringing him on.
Yep.
I would watch that and listen to it like right away.
There you go.
Oh, extra points if it's just some crazy person we find.
I mean, I had a general question that I guess I was kind of waiting for the right moment. Maybe related to like you getting casted to doing the ESPN gig, and this is something that Nate and I can't relate to, but like your experience as a female in the industry, it's a very male-dominated industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I guess I'm just curious, like, what that has been like for you, and because now there's a lot of different organizations, Hit Like a Girl contest, and seems like after the Me Too movement, there's just this more conceited effort, right, to have more females playing drums, and I deal with it a lot at Pearl, like how we represent our artists, and marketing is never been more important and scrutinized, I'd say. So like, yeah, I'm just kind of wondering your thoughts on that.
Sure. Well, I'll start with a very business-like standpoint of, I mean, when it comes to film stuff, TV show stuff, it's a very visual, and it's industry. It's very, I mean, typecasting. It's very important what gender when they're looking for something. It's usually the ESPN thing. Thankfully, was not. Normally, TV show things, it's like they put male drummer, and like they have to keep it male drummer. They can't just change it to female last minute.
Right.
But I mean, when I played with Keith Urban, that was specifically they were looking for a female. But within that, you still have to perform. I've gotten gigs because I was a female. I've also been turned down for gigs because I was a female. So I guess that's kind of what chased me towards being a session drummer, because when you listen, you can't tell. Yeah. It's just the most important thing is like, does this feel and sound great, or
right.
does it not? I can't tell if it's a guy or a girl.
Yeah, that doesn't matter at that point.
It doesn't matter. And I just started I got burned a couple times, and it really sucked.
Yeah.
Just kind of getting a gig because I was a girl, or not getting a gig, and, taking a red-eye flight, crushing an audition, and then getting the phone call that, look, you had the best audition, but we had to go with somebody else, and knowing what that means. Because they're not going to say it. And
right.
it stinks.
Yeah, that must be tough.
It's a lot different since I moved to Nashville. I just hit 10 years of being here. And there are a few studios on Music Row where they openly told me that you are the first female drummer to record here.
Wow.
To which I'm thinking, why is that relevant? Yeah. But also it's just like, wow, we weren't as far along as I thought we were. But things are a lot different. I mean, the Me Too movement, it's been another 10 years. Social media has brought up a lot of really amazing female drummers, so it's the norm now. In a city like Nashville, there's definitely more female drummers than there might be in a city in Ohio or something. I mean, there's just more concentration here.
Right.
There's points where it works for you and points where it doesn't. And what really matters to me is the gigs that I'm hired to do because of how I play and not because of how I look.
Right.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
I'm at the point, thankfully, where I can kind of sense that and be able to choose. Yes, these people want to work with me because of our musical connection and how I fit with their project and how my playing fits with them. And they're not just having me here because they want a female drummer. I could go into stories that, I don't have to, but it's just, I don't know. I feel like I'm finally getting to the point in my career where it's not mattering so much.
Yeah.
But there is this whole, I don't know, the whole like, shouldn't you love the all-girl drumming competitions? Shouldn't you love the all-female drumming magazines, or being put in an article with all these female drummers? Shouldn't you love that as a feminist? And I'm just like, I don't want to be like held up on a pedestal just because I'm a female. I'm pointed out just for that. I just want to be included in a natural, fair fight.
Yeah, you just want to I just want to be treated like everybody else. Yeah.
I don't want to be
on your own merit.
Yeah, I don't want somebody to be like, you're my favorite female drummer.
Right.
Like, why can't I just be one of your favorite drummers?
Yeah.
Right.
And I know they don't mean that in a mean way. They don't realize that hurts.
Right. Just that twisting that mindset. We're still not quite there.
Exactly. Yeah. I was asked to be interviewed for a magazine that I really wanted to be in, and didn't realize it was going to be as part of a spread on just female drummers. And that kind of hurt. I'm like, I thought it was just going to be just up and coming drummers, and I ended up just kind of turning it down and saying, I would rather be included when it's just about the drumming and not
just my merit, right?
Just on my playing, and if I have an interesting story to tell that might help somebody, and maybe that's my higher calling too, is just kind of, kind of empowering females. Doesn't even have to be to play drums. It could be a career in music, just to be like, you can be a successful musician and not have to lean on this crutch that is our sexuality. That is like, I don't have to take this gig when they're telling you have to wear this and you're not allowed to do this and you need to just be sexy or whatever. And that's the only reason that I had somebody tell me, no panty lines on stage. What? It's just like, you can tell girls, you can walk away right there and say, you do not have to take that gig. Yeah. There are enough opportunities out there where if you work your butt off and you are a fantastic musician and you work really, really hard, you'll still be successful. There are other gigs that they want you there to play drums for them. And that's kind of the message I'm trying to really put across now, that it's just, we want to be in a fair fight. We want to be recognized because, I don't know, we're good players too.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. I mean, it's I think it's a great message. Yeah.
I like what you're saying too, because there's a mindset, I think with everyone, I mean, not everyone, but a lot of people in this town particularly are desperate for a gig. And when someone hands them something that looks good, like, even if this situation's kind of crummy, you don't have to take that gig. You really don't. You're not. There are other gigs. You said it perfectly. There's other gigs.
The one that's meant to find you is going to find you, and you're going to fall in line with the right people.
Yep.
At the same time, I'm not trying to hide the fact that I'm a girl.
Right.
I don't feel like I need to dress in guys' clothes and be homey. Right. Just to, I love being a girl, and I love who I am, but I can also love drumming, and it's just like, it's not, being a girl just isn't all what I am, but like, you can go the opposite way with it, is what I'm saying. And
absolutely.
People are just like, well, why are you trying to be all girly? And I'm like, I can do both.
Right. I can do both.
I can do both.
Eat it, everyone who thinks I can't.
Maybe it took 10 years of being here, but I'm finally getting a little bit more comfortable with it. And the situation really is getting better. More companies and brands and artists are getting more sensitive to the fact of just the images that they are putting out to the world. Mm-hmm. And in this younger generation who you're trying to inspire, I mean, companies like Pearl know that you're going to create a lifetime consumer out of the kids who are 10 years old that are just playing drums.
Yes.
They're learning then, who their favorite drummers are and who they want to be and what drums those drummers play. And that's who they're trying to target. So when we're targeting this age group, it's just so crucial that we can just show it. It's like...
Yeah, that representation.
Yeah.
Whether it's social media or just an advertisement or catalog.
It's not just about like cute girl drummer. It's like just great drummer. Do you want to,
Right. Yeah, it's great. Again, that's not something that I've ever even thought about. Probably you either. Like when we have a gig, it's like, or just show, I don't think about what I'm wearing. Or if I do, it's not ever because it's as a male. Like,
well,
but...
I've definitely started to think. My problem was that I didn't care at all until people were like, "Hey, start dressing better." I'm like, oh, okay.
Image is so important in Nashville. Even guys, they really get on you about like your fashion sense.
Yeah, I got my jean jacket. Like the first few months I was here, trying to fit in, trying to play the part.
Mm-hmm.
I had a younger friend lecture me. He's like, "Bro, no V-necks, and you need to get some accessories, and you need like, oh man, shut up, just shut up, bro. Like I don't care." But I've learned to enjoy that. So it's all good now. But the visual nature of this whole business is very real. And
dress for the gig you want. I mean, it applies to us more than anybody.
Yep. Actually, I have a friend whose name is Lou, who's a fantastic drummer. He lives in New York. He was Modern Drummers, what was it? Undiscovered Drummer of the Year for over 18 he's the one from 2003. Anyway, fantastic player, fantastic dude. He was telling me about before I moved here. He was like, hey, just so you know, he's like, you got long hair, looks good. I goes, I would like make sure you like keep it back. He's like, they're really visual out there, bro. I did an audition and I was playing traditional and they were like, yeah, man, you're like by far the best drummer here. But I don't think we can go with you because you play traditional. He's like, I can play match grip. Like, okay, great, we can go with you then.
Oh my God.
Like, oh, whoa, they cared about that much. That's really good to know. Mm-hmm. So I kind of came to town with that in my brain. Like, okay, so they care a lot about not just you doing the thing well, but really how you look doing the thing. All right.
They listen with their eyes.
Yes. We're listening with our eyes more and more, which is kind of scary. But, well, we're at kind of a good place. Do we want to do the like kind of rapid fire stuff?
Yeah. We normally like kind of close things. We just kind of ask just some quicker questions where you kind of, it doesn't have to be like one word, but just more of your gut answers and just kind of go back and forth. And these are
exciting.
Not scripted, I don't think.
No, definitely not, because I usually ask the dumbest possible questions.
You go first.
Okay. Gerbils or hamsters? Oh yeah, that's the face I was hoping to get.
Probably gerbil.
Okay, why?
Oh my goodness. Gerbils sound like they're smaller.
Okay.
Do you Nashville hot chicken? Yes or no?
Yes.
Favorite spot?
Bolton's.
Bolton's.
Yep.
I still haven't been to
That's
Bolton's.
like the local. Like there's Hattie B's for the tourists, but Bolton's is like authentic.
I mean, Prince's is pretty good, but
Prince's
for the quality of the crispiness of the chicken, but
Okay.
Bolton's for the seasoning and the taste.
See, that's what it's all about.
Bolton's.
Have you done big shakes?
No.
Ooh. Okay. This is no shade on big shakes, that I love them. They've gotten my order wrong 7 out of 10 times, but their chicken is so good. When they get it right, oh my God,
7
I think
out
it's
of
the
10?
best.
I'm starting to think it's you. What are you ordering?
It's not just
Maybe you're
me.
just messing up
Other people are having the same experience.
That's
Joe,
a high rate. That's 70%.
Yeah, maybe it's, I don't know. Maybe it's not that high, but it's at least half the time I get the wrong
like saying
thing.
a small
I'm like,
Starbucks,
man, this is the wrong
we
thing,
don't
but
call it a
it's
small.
still really, really good. Yeah. Maybe my favorite. Okay. What's a good? Let's ask some sort of rudimental question. Pataflaflas or flamicus?
Flamicue. I had to say that twice because I didn't think the mic picked me up.
Nice.
Okay, perfect. That's all. That's all I had.
I don't really have a description.
That's fine.
I would say the Swiss Army triplet's my favorite rudiment, if that was another question.
Okay, it wasn't, but I'm glad to know it. It is a great rudiment.
Pataflafla. I just have a hard time saying it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a hard time playing.
Sounds how it's played, right?
It does, I guess. Kind of.
What's one piece of advice that you would tell yourself, your 5-year-old self, or your 10-year-old self when you were younger?
About drums or just about?
I'm not going to even say drums, but just like knowing what you know now. Like if you go back and tell your younger self something.
Whoa.
Now she's thinking.
Ooh, here we go.
That's a terrifying question. That's not a rapid fire question.
No.
Buy Bitcoin.
Yeah, right. Invent Bitcoin.
Invent Bitcoin. That's it. Usually, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Now, realistically, I would have told myself to take more audio classes, like and through college and even in high school too. Maybe practice mallets a little bit more than I did. But like personally, I don't know.
Well, you answered it. Yeah. I mean, it could be music
It
still.
could be music.
That's fine.
Just
There's no wrong
put more
answer.
time and energy into making really great friends. Because I feel like it's so easy. I got so wrapped up in just music and traveling and solo competitions and then going to college. It's just having friends is something I never put enough time into. And now that I have a couple really great friends, I just wish I would have,
Wow.
That takes a lot of time and that's important.
It's great advice.
Yeah, I love that.
And your network, right?
Yes.
I think that's perfect. Perfect way to end it. Yeah. Thank you.
Aw.
Yeah. Friendship.
Now we're all going to go fishing as friends.
Oh my gosh, dude, I'm legitimately pumped about this.
See, I love the things we learn on this podcast because so far it's been mainly just our close friends here. And I'm glad that you're number 6, but we're learning things that we didn't even know about each other, which is cool.
Yeah, that's true. You didn't know I played bass.
Didn't? Well, you know how to play. I don't know if I'd say you play.
You don't know. I might shred, maybe.
I wouldn't be surprised.
We'll find out.
Are you like fretless or 5 or 6 string? Or are you
upright?
Strictly 4 strings.
Who's your favorite
electric.
bass player?
Ooh, favorite bass player? Hadrian Farod.
Who?
He's a French guy. Oh. He's a monster. He's a dude who, this is just one measure of how ridiculous. He's one of those guys who learned every Jaco Pastorius song by the time they're 15, could do all of the stuff. Mm-hmm. I saw him play with Damien. You know Damien Schmidt? Damien's a monster. Damien's playing the electric kit, and they're doing their thing and jamming, and Damien comes in with scuts. I'm like, what are they about to do? Teen Town at that speed.
Oh.
Yeah. I actually had this shocked hand up on my mouth thing. I looked at the person next to me. I'm like, that's impossible. Yeah, Hadrian's amazing. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to have you type that out so I can see it.
Okay.
Written.
Yeah, Hadrian, and then maybe who else? I mean, there's all kinds of dudes I love for other reasons. I love Les Claypool just because I love Primus and I love Les's ideas. He's such a madman. But that's the other end of the universe.
Well, cool.
Delete all of that. We don't need to know what bass players.
I have one more question.
Nope, it's over.
I'm just what's kind of coming up next for you? What's your next project, or what's maybe the next 1 to 2 years? What's your focus?
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it sounds like you're excited to go back on tour 2022.
Yeah, I've definitely been lately leaning more towards pop artists. Mm-hmm. But I just started working with Ian Flanagan, who's country, and I love his music and the way he plays guitar and just that whole camp. So I'm definitely going to pursue that, but I see the possibilities in pop for me with the Mallet Station and just kind of being one of those kind of players.
Yeah.
I mean, touring would be great, and then just kind of building up my rapport in the session world in Nashville, doing more and more of that, sitting in more and more stuff there. And I don't know. Eventually, I would love to kind of have a similar. I mean, this is just big dreams, I guess. Kind of being like a Steve Jordan eventually, if I'm allowed to dream in that. He's got a sound. He's got a sound, mm-hmm. and people will fly him across the world because they want his playing on either their show, their late night thing, or their record. Just because he is he's a personality. He does what he does. Right. And it's kind of finding that sound and finding that place for myself. And I'd love to eventually get to that point where I can work on a million different projects of different, the thing about recording is it keeps you in Nashville, and I love traveling too. Yeah. And I love being a vibrant, I like being a character.
Right.
On stage too. So kind of keeping it, I don't know, just try to find my voice in the next 2 years. What makes me different? Mm-hmm. And I'm this last year's helped me forge that a little bit more. That's kind of where I'm going, finding some happy medium between traveling and recording. And
yeah.
I feel like that's a journey we're all on, right? Trying to find our own sound.
Yes.
It's beautiful. Yeah, well, I think you're well on your way. So
thank you. Thanks for having me,
guys.
Thank you for coming. This is awesome.
This is really, really cool. Yeah. And our meeting stories are really off the wall, too.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Nashville Drummers Podcast. If If you liked it, please consider leaving us a review on the Apple Podcast app.
Also, definitely check us out on Instagram. You can follow us at Nashville Drummers Podcast.
If you're interested in being on the podcast, go ahead and send a message to either Dan or myself, or you can send it directly to the Nashville Drummers page on Instagram, and we will talk to you and review your case, and we'll judge you harshly. Just kidding.